Namaste, my dear friends. Thank you so much for making it for this live session. I know we have been, reaching out to you guys, reaching out to colleges, and I must first of all thank all the colleges and the management of the colleges for making this happen because without your dear support, none of this would have been possible. My dear friends, first and foremost, let me introduce myself. My name is Rohit. I'm the managing director of the e-learning division of Rooman Technologies. A quick introduction about Rooman Technologies. Rooman is a 21-year-old brand, which is a company which is into multiple different fields of operation, from doing government funded skill training programs across the nation in our 100 plus centers, to doing cybersecurity projects, to doing smart city projects, to developing enterprise software applications, to working on robotic process automation. These are just few of the verticals which I can name about Rooman. It's a company which has solidified its presence in the last 20 years and has been a huge contributor towards nation building in our own discrete ways in the background without making much noise. Now, first and foremost, why are we here today? My dear friends, this is a 3-day workshop arranged by Rooman in association with the National Skill Development Council or NSDC, NASCOM, and the Skill India Mission. Right? What is the purpose behind this workshop? And more is what I'm going to discuss. But before I start, one last time, if you can hear me and you're as excited as me to attend this workshop, can you put one last yes in the chat so that I know there is absolutely no issues and all of you are as pumped as me to listen to whatever we have to offer?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Great. Now, this is a live session, guys. And let me begin by saying this is unlike any live webinar you have attended. At the end of the session, I'm also going to give you guys the ability to unmute your microphones and ask me whatever question you want, right? And definitely, I will try my very best to try and answer all of your questions. But what are we all assembled here for? As I told you, this is a 3-day workshop on full stack web development, and that is the topic of discussion. I know many of you have heard this word, full stack web development. You have heard it. But my question to you is, how many of you actually know what is full stack development? If you know what is full stack web development, my second question is, how many of you know what is the learning path that you must be following in order to actually master what you call as full stack web development? Even deeper, if you go, what are the different technology skill sets one has to be acquiring in order to ever consider herself or himself as a full stack web developer? And more is what this entire session is going to be about. This is a 3-day workshop. Every day you will have to give me 90 minutes of your time, which is 1.5 hours. At the end of these 3-day workshop, it is my promise to you that you would have walked out with a much more deeper understanding of what is full stack web development and much more. Now, to just give you a glimpse of what and all we have in store for you, on the first day, that is today, we are going to explore full stack web development in detail. Then I'm going to also speak about one of the most talked about languages in 2020, which is Python. And I'm sure many of you are considering, should I learn Python or not? Because I know many of you would have learned Java, many of you would have learned C, C++, maybe some of you have also learned C sharp. But Python is something which has recently been introduced in the academic syllabus of different universities. And many of you, especially if you're in your fourth year or something, probably would have never even heard about Python or are still considering to learn Python, because wherever you go, Python is the buzzword. Now, is there really some substance to Python? And is it worth investing your time to learn Python? And more is what we are going to be speaking about, right? But if in case you come tomorrow at the same time, then my dear friends, day 2, these are the things I have in store for you. I'm going to be doing some AMCAT coding questions. I'm sure many of you have taken the AMCAT paper, right? And definitely there is a coding section as well. I'm going to be solving some of the questions there. Now, some of you will be thinking, but Rohit, I don't know coding. I am from a non-technical background. I am from a non-CSIS stream. Will I be able to understand? My dear friend, there is always and always from the day I started teaching 5 years back. 15,000 students have trained so far in my career. After 5 years of teaching and 15,000 students later, only one prerequisite I have for my classes, which is you must understand the language which I'm speaking, which is English. If you can understand English, you'll understand every word which I'm speaking, and that is my promise to you, and you can judge it for yourself. We will be doing something called as pattern program. Variety of patterns. You would have seen you have these triangle patterns, you have these square patterns, you have these number patterns, number series patterns. I'm going to solve most of the commonly asked pattern programming questions. And by the end of tomorrow's session, any pattern given to you, you'll be able to develop a logic on your own for it because I would have laid the foundation for you. And definitely there's going to be a Q&A as well. If 2 days you spent with us and you loved the experience and you made it to the third day as well, then my dear friend, the third day, we are going to be speaking about few data structures in Python, and I'll be introducing you to some of the competitive programming questions, which is asked in most of the interviews today. And I'll be directly going to platforms like HackerRank, picking questions, and we will be coding their solutions together so that you get a feel of how these coding platforms work. Because I know 2020 has been a very, very weird time for all of us, right? Nothing we imagined is working out the way we imagined. All of our lives have turned upside down. In fact, I never thought that through a digital medium, I will be speaking to almost 600 participants at the same time. All this has been made possible thanks to technology. In fact, this unique way of the teaching that you are seeing is also a brainchild which was born out of this pandemic situation where we wanted to do what we love, which is to impart technology training to our students in the most effective possible way, right? But I know, being especially those of you who are 2020 graduates, I know these are very confusing times, right? How do you get placed? How do you attend interviews? How do you attend online interviews? What are the tips and tricks you must keep at the back of your mind, and more? Throughout this session, I will be guiding you to the best of my ability, right? So, my dear friend, also at the end of 3 days, you will be eligible to also get this certificate, right? And this certificate definitely holds a lot of value. It is a 3-day workshop participation certificate, and it is not only from Rooman. As you can see, there is NSDC, there is NASCOM, there is Skill India. It's a joint certification. Definitely can add some value to your resumes, right? But this certificate is not something I'm going to give it to everyone. There are certain criteria. What is the criteria? Simple. All 3 days you should have attended the workshop from minute 1 to the last minute. Because at the end of today's class, I will be putting an attendance link in the chat. All of you must fill that attendance link. While filling that attendance link, you must keep two things at the back of your mind. First thing you must keep at the back of your mind is you're filling your information correctly. Your name, the spelling of your names, your email address, all of that you must fill it correctly. Otherwise, I cannot be taking this digital certificate and I will not be able to help it reach your inbox correctly. And many times in our previous workshops, so far almost around 2,000 to 2,500 people have attended our workshop in the last 3 months. Many people come back to us saying that there is a spelling mistake in our certificate. Yes, what you fill is what you get, right? So make sure you're taking some time, giving some attention and filling it correctly so that all these issues can be avoided. Any confusion till this point of time? What else you might ask? Enough of all rules and regulations. Now let's have some fun, shall we? Now, my dear friend, let us talk about web development as such. What is web development? I want to breathe some life into what is meant by web development. First and foremost, today, what is the biggest influence in our life? If you ask me, it is nothing but the invention of a technology which we call as the internet. That is the biggest driving force of our life, internet. 9 out of 10 things today we are doing is thanks to the internet. Today, Many of us, we have less interaction with the real world, more interaction with the digital world. Isn't that how life has shaped itself? Today, in fact, you're listening to me also through the internet via a digital medium. Now I want you to think, right? Any business, whether it is startup, a large scale business, a small and medium sized business, anyone, if he or she wants to do business today, must have a digital presence. And how does one have a digital presence? In simple words, it is by having a website. That is the only way you can have digital presence. And a person who helps make these websites possible is what we call as a web developer. But a website is more of a layman's terms, is a more non-technical way of speaking, right? If technically you ask me, what is a website? I would not use the word website. I would rather say that a web developer is somebody who spends his time creating something called as web applications. This is what he creates. Now, what is a web application? It is nothing but a website. But all that you guys see is what is visible to your eyes. But a website is actually a web application. And a web application is an application or a software. But unlike other softwares, it is a software which has been divided into three distinct layers. What are those three distinct layers, if you ask me? The first layer, my dear friend, is something called as front end. The second, very, very important layer is what people refer to as the back end. And of course, what is holding all of this together is another layer which we call as the database layer. I hope till here there is no confusion. You may have questions, hold on to them, put it in the chat. Definitely we will answer. And as I told you at the end of the session, I will live answer all your questions. Don't ever worry about it, right? Now, there are three layers to a web application. Now, let me breathe some life into each of these layers. First of all, let us speak about front end. Front end, in simple words, my friend, is what you can see. Out of the three layers, the layer which the user can see with his eyes on his phone screen, on his tablet screen, on his laptop screen, on his desktop screen is what you call as front end, right? And there are certain technologies which you must know if you want to successfully create a front end. What are those technologies, if you ask me? The first one is a certain language called as HTML, also something called as CSS, also something called as JavaScript, and also something called as Bootstrap. HTML and CSS are markup languages. What do you mean by markup languages? I will certainly explain to you. JavaScript is a programming language designed for the web, which brings life to the front end, which makes the front end responsive, which brings dynamism to the front end. And what is Bootstrap, if you ask me? It is a framework which takes all these three technologies, combines it as one, such that the developer has to write minimal code. Whatever you can think of, you can just in one line achieve it. That is called as a framework. More about it, we will explore in depth. But this is front end. These are the technologies associated with front end. Now, what do you mean by back end, you might ask? Now, my friend, if in case you go to Amazon, or if in case you go to Flipkart, let me just give you an example. If I take you to my browser window, right? If I just take you to my browser window, just watch it, all of you. I'm in Google. I will just type Amazon there. I'll just type Amazon. Right? So I'll open Amazon. This is Amazon. Now, what you are seeing, this is only front end, right? As you can scroll down, you can see the different colors, the different arrangements, the the user experience, the way things are arranged, the way it looks, the feel. This is front end. But if in case I scroll on top, and there if I just search for maybe mobile phone like this, mobile, I will just tell, yeah, mobile phones, I will tell. Now, if I increase the size a little bit, you can notice on your left corner, if I come down, there is something where I can select the brands I want. For example, I will select Samsung, Redmi, Apple. Go back. Okay. Maybe forget about the brand. See, come down. Here, if you notice, you have something called as price under 1,000, from 1,000 to 5,000, from 5,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 20,000, right? Here, it is giving me a minimum and maximum. Let us assume I tell minimum is 6,000. Maximum is 40,000, I will tell. I will not press go. But you must understand, if in case I were to press go, don't you think Amazon must go into its database and fetch me such phones which falls under this price range? Don't you think, in a way, this is a searching and sorting algorithm which is working in the background? If I press go, yes, the front end is displaying me all that information, but who found these relevant phones? This cannot be achieved by HTML. This cannot be achieved by CSS because they will only allow you to present information. They can't search, they can't sort, because searching and sorting is what only and only a programming language can do for you. So don't you think in the background a programming language should be actively functioning? Well, my friend, that is what you call as a backend. If I go back to what I was speaking about, front end took care of displaying. Back end is where the processing happens. Back end is where the hardcore programming happens. And if back end is what you have to take care of, then there are certain things you must keep at the back of your mind. There are different programming languages you can use. Just to give you an example, if Python is what you select, right? Then Python and its associated frameworks, such as a framework like Django, is what you can use. If Java is what you chose, then Java and its associated frameworks like Spring and Hibernate is what you can choose. If JavaScript is what you choose, JavaScript and its frameworks such as Express.js, Node.js is what you can use. So there are plenty of options, plenty of options. But I hope you understood why a backend is required. Because this is just for displaying. This is for processing. But ultimately, if this guy has to display, this guy has to process, ultimately what they're displaying and processing is information, is data. When we went to Amazon, all that phones which you are seeing, their price, right? The release date, their discounts, you know, the availability, how many units are in stock, what is the all this information? Don't you think it's data? See, Samsung Galaxy M2, Midnight Blue, 4GB, 64GB, its ratings, its cost. All this is information. Information is also called as data. Now, don't you think this data has to be stored somewhere? Now, where is it stored? If you ask me, that is the third layer of a web application, which you call as database. Hope you understood why a database is required. And if database is what you want to work on, you must know some database technology. Then the most basic one which is used today is SQL. It's not basic in its nature. SQL is very powerful, but one of the most used databases is SQL. Any confusion till here? So naturally, if one thinks about full stack web development, obviously one has to know about all these three layers and has to know all these technologies. That is why any web development course you speak about will have to speak about these three layers, will have to teach you these three technologies. Of course, front end will be the same, back end will be the database will be the same. The choice is always with respect to the back end. Is it Java? Is it JavaScript? Is it Django? Which is better? That is a topic for another time. Because in today's IT world, if you master any one of this, you have more than enough opportunities waiting for you out there. Because today, what we are suffering is not unemployment. What we are suffering is unemployability. What we are suffering is a skill gap. That is what we are suffering, right? For a skilled individual, there is 1,001 opportunities out there. For an unskilled individual, there are 1,001 reasons out there. I hope you understood the difference between both, right? Anyways, Let us try to understand more about web applications. But before that, just to check if you guys are actually listening to me or are you sleeping, can you tell me yes in the chat if you're awake and you're listening to me? Because I feel some of you will be holding that phone, lying in your bed like this, and who knows what you're doing because you are not in front of me. Can I proceed? Is it clear till here? Are all of you in sync with what I'm saying? Wonderful. Great. Let's move forward. Okay. Next, what you might ask. Now, I want you to understand. Let me give you a few statistics. Why you must choose web development. See, here I'm showing percentage of change in employment. Here I'm showing the different occupations. Web developers, right? Every year, 13%, it's growing. This field is growing by 13% every year. And that is huge, I want you to understand. Just to give you a comparison of how good 13% is, web development is one of the fields in the IT industry. There are other fields also. All those other fields, if I put together, computer occupations I'm calling, just is increasing by 12%. And all other non-IT jobs is increasing year on year by 5%. Don't you think this one graph is proof enough for you that how much web developers are in demand? And it is for a very good reason, because web developers bring a lot of value to a company. See, web developer jobs are expected to grow 13% from 2018 to 2028, which means 10 years they were speaking about. 80% of web developers, right, web developer freelancers reported a client growth of 25% a year, which means if I have a business, I recruited a web developer, he made a website for me, took my business online, my business grew by 25%. Would I not bow down to such an individual? Definitely a client would be happy. A web developer reports an impressive salary increase of 104.8% year on year, which means their hike is double. Every year, your salary is doubling. And it will not just double magically. You must update yourself. You must upskill yourself. You must have a passion for technology. You must have a passion towards what you're doing. Of course, graphs are always very misleading, right? It does not show the human effort and the human passion involved behind creating something. But definitely, even the statisticians are saying web development is a beautiful career. Go for it, right? Now, some of you will be thinking, what about AI, machine learning, data science? Are they not something which we should be considering? My friend, you are right. The fourth industrial revolution is going to be AI. AI is not some distant futuristic concept. AI is very much a reality today. Very much a reality today. You go to YouTube. YouTube knows what you want to watch. It's recommending you videos. You go to Spotify, Ghana, Savan. It is recommending you songs. It knows what you want to listen to, right? If you go to Netflix, it's recommending you a movie. If you go to Amazon Prime, it's recommending you a movie, right? You go to Facebook, it's recommending you friends. If you go to Facebook, if you are not tagged in a particular image, it is saying that, hey, I found you in an image. Do you want to tag yourself, right? All this is machine learning. All this is artificial intelligence. All this is data science. So it is already the present, but it is going to be the complete future. But unfortunately, today as we speak, a fresher is never ever considered for a data science role, is never considered for a machine learning engineer role. Maybe out of 100 people who apply, one person who's extremely talented might get the job, because you need domain expertise. Domain expertise comes only through experience. Enter in roles such as a traditional software developer or a full stack web developer or a tester. And then once you get experience, it's very easy to shift into these domains. And that should be the approach that you must be following. Anyways, next what you might ask. See, now I want you to understand, right? Whenever we use this word web application, I want you to understand, what do you mean by this word web application? That is something I want you to understand. What is meant by web application? See, web application means it is a software. But there is something very unique about this software compared to other softwares. Just to give you an example, I know 99.9% of you have used Microsoft Word in your life, have used PowerPoint in your life. have played some games on your computer. But my question to you is, you have Microsoft Word in your computer. If you have to use Microsoft Word, that software should be installed in your computer. PowerPoint should be installed in your computer. Excel should be installed in your computer. And only you can access the software. Or another way of putting it is, who has access to the computer has access to the software. Physically, they must access the computer. They must have accessibility to the computer. Those are called as stand-alone applications. But I am speaking about a different kind of application called as web application. Now, what is unique about a web application, if you ask me? Please understand, just like your traditional software, web application is also installed somewhere. The software is running somewhere. Where is it running, if you ask me? It is running in a special type of computer called as a server. Now, why I call server as special is because it's not special. It's a very powerful computer. Its hardware configurations are extremely amazing, very, very high-end specifications it has. Okay, so what, you might ask? So what if you ask me? This server computer could be anywhere in the world. It could be in India, Australia, Japan, UK, Canada, USA, Africa. It could be anywhere. Location doesn't matter. Let us assume that is you. You're a user. As a user, you are not where that server is. You don't have physical access to that computer, but you also want to use it. Now the question is, how will you use it? Very simple. All you have to do is install a software in your computer called as a browser. I'm sure all of you have heard this word browser. Chrome is a browser. Firefox is a browser. Internet Explorer is a browser. Safari is a browser. All you have to do is install a browser. Then what, you might ask? The next expectation is you must have an active internet connection. That is the next expectation. So what, you might ask? I have a browser, I have an internet. Now the beauty is, via the browser, by using the internet, you can send a request to use that software to the server. You can send a request, which is what I'm also just showing you like this. You can definitely send a request. The moment the server gets your request, it processes that request, and via the same internet, the server sends you back a response. And that response is what you see on the browser. If I go back to my browser, I want you to think about what I'm trying to tell you, right? This is my browser. Now tell me, Amazon, can you even imagine how complex a software it is? Do you think a complex software like Amazon, I have installed it in my computer? Definitely not. All I have is a small software called as a browser. In this case, Chrome. But I have Chrome, I have an internet connection. Now I can request the Amazon server. How, if you ask me, if I scroll completely on top, see here, I'll just go there, click on the 3 bars over there. And there I will just, maybe you're not able to see that. I will just click there. Yeah. So here I will tell, okay, I want to, best sellers. Don't click there. I want to know what are the best sellers. Now, if I click on best sellers, what am I saying? I'm sending a request to the Amazon server telling, server, tell me what are the best sellers. The software is not installed here, but if I click there, a request is sent and a response is given. And this is what you're seeing as the response. If I scroll down, as you can see in books, these are the best sellers, inspired, top. Are you able to see this? Request, response, client, server, distributed systems, these are called as. Same is the case with Facebook. Same is the case with Instagram. Same is the case with LinkedIn. Today, web applications rule the world. And it is web applications which allow us to do 9 out of 10 things. YouTube is another web application. You have access to billions of videos on YouTube, but do you have one video stored in your system? No. Is YouTube software there in your system? No. Some of you might say, I have an app. Correct. The app is nothing but a mini browser specialized for YouTube. I want you to understand, right? How beautiful is this? This is the nature of web applications. I think you understood why you must invest time learning there. Now let us go a little bit more deeper. If I go back, you must understand, you understood this request response stuff. Now, next what I'm trying to say is, let us take one small example, shall we? Now, what I'm trying to say is, the beauty of a web application is, this browser, you can have it in your phone also. You can access the web application using a device such as a tablet also, like this. Even using a tablet, you can be achieving it. Sorry, there is a delay. Yeah, using a tablet. Also, if you want, using a desktop or a laptop computer also, you can be doing it. In other words, device does not matter. Whichever device you can use. Any confusion till this point of time? So I hope I've given you enough clarity about web applications. Now, let me show you how these different technologies come into the picture. Now, one simple example, right? Simple example. Assume I want to create a website where I want to sell mobile phones, only mobile phones. You know, there are different kinds of mobile phones in the world. Every day, 5 mobile phones are being released. Now, I want to create an e-commerce website for these mobile phones. First thing is, I have to decide how I want to present the information, how the information must be presented in my front end, in my browser. How I want it is, maybe I want image of a phone, I want the name of the phone, and I want a button called as no more. If they click on this button, more information should be provided. This is how I want. Like different phones, I want the image to come, and I want the name to come, and I want a no more button to come. Now, arranging information the way you want it, presenting the information the way you want it, is achieved by not using a programming language, but by using a different type of language called as a markup language. And the world's most famous markup language used in web development. Any guesses what it is? Can you put in the chat which is this markup language I'm speaking about, which is the world's most used markup language? Let me see how many of you are awake and listening to me. Wonderful. HTML. That is a good guess. Srinivas says HTML. Everyone HTML. Oh, everyone HTML. Oh, very good. Very good. As you guys rightly pointed out, it is nothing but the world's most used markup language, which is HTML. And out of the different versions of HTML, we are using the latest and greatest version, which is HTML5. Clear till here? But tell me, if this is how a website was, not nice to look at, no color, no feel, no design, would you like to use such a website? Because human beings are very visual creatures. Out of all the sense organs we have, touch, smell, taste, different sense organs, the sense organ which works the most is vision. That is what works the most, right? It is visually, if something is good, is when human beings respond to it. I know it's unfortunate, but that is how it is. Now, you want to make this visually pleasing. You want to add color to it. You want to add animations to it. You want to add designs to it. In other words, you want to format your information and make it look presentable like this. Then that HTML can't do for you, my dear friend. Then who can do that for me? That can be done by a fellow who's specialist at styling, who is a specialist at applying makeup. And that is none other than your cascading style sheets or CSS. And we are using CSS3. That is the standard in the industry, right? So I hope you understood why CSS3 comes into the picture. However, if you want these websites to be more responsive, right? For example, if I just go back to my Amazon website, right? Watch this. In my Amazon website, if I just go back there, right? Now I will just go search for some mobile phone. So iPhone, be careful. You don't sell your kidney and buy it. Only 2 kidneys you have. So point I'm trying to say is, if I just take the cursor on top of the stars, do you see one pop-up came? This is called as dynamic web page, responsive web page. If this kind of responsiveness you want, HTML can't do it for you. CSS cannot do it for you. My dear friend, you need another ingredient. Another spice should be added to the masala, which is nothing but JavaScript. It is JavaScript which makes a website responsive, which makes all these popping up, fading out animations possible. And that is what I'm also trying to show you, that 100% JavaScript is another huge player which you have to be using. And that is what I'm also just showing you here, that JavaScript is another huge player. And of course, every time you need not write code from scratch, because from years people have been doing web development. If you want a button like this, there is no need for you to sit and code from scratch. They have created something called as framework, where they have taken huge amounts of code, integrated it here. All you have to do is pull that code out of here and use it. And the pulling of the code can be achieved in one line instead of writing a 100-line code. That is what frameworks provide for you. And Bootstrap is a very, very famous front-end framework. Any confusion till this point of time? But I hope how these technologies came into the picture, you understand. Similarly, don't you think every day new phones are being added? Now let us assume somebody refreshes the website. If he refreshes the website, the latest phone should come for me like this. Latest phone should come. Again, if he refreshes the website, again new phone should come for me like this. If this I need, then this new phones, that information should come. Now, where is that information? That information, my dear friend, is not stored in the front end. Front end can't store, it can only display. Where does storing happen, if you ask me? That happens within the database. And there are different technologies for you to store data within a database. I'm just listing out few for you like this. MySQL, Oracle, MongoDB, different types of database technologies are there. Of course, which one you will pick depends upon the kind of application you're building, depends upon the architecture of the software application. Any which ways, ultimately, front end cannot directly go to the database, fetch relevant information and display it here. It cannot do that. That again, as I told you, is only and only possible if a programming language connects these two together. And that, my dear friend, is nothing but your backend. I told you many different options you have. If Java is the language you love, Java, Spring, Hibernate, beautiful combination, has a lot of value in today's world. If in case JavaScript is your language of choice, Express.js, Node.js, variety of frameworks are there. In fact, JavaScript is such a language which can be used for front end, which can be used for back end as well. That is unique to JavaScript, right? It has frameworks for front end development like AngularJS. It has frameworks for back end development such as Node.js. That is why many startups prefer using JavaScript. Of course, the new up and coming rock star in the industry is none other than Python with its frameworks such as Java and which are such as Django and Flask. Of course, there is Microsoft's programming language C# and its frameworks such as .NET MVC, .NET Core, which can also be used. Now, which is better? That is never the question you should ask. Which is good for what kind of application? That is the question you should ask. And that is the duty of an individual called as a software architect. He is the senior most technical person in a company who decides for which application, which technology stack would be ideal. And it's he who decides the stack, he who recruits the right people with the right skill set, and he's the person who drives the development of a software, right? Anyways, as a fresher, I would say that definitely close your eyes, learn Java. Along with that, learn Python. These are the two combinations which can secure your present and your future. This can easily get you your first job. This can fetch you your future job. So that is how you should think, because it's not like any of you plan on starting working today and retiring tomorrow, isn't it? It is a long journey. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, isn't it? You have to run for 10, 15, 20 years, isn't it? So always have an eye in the future. Always have thirst for technology. Learn, adapt, learn, adapt. This is how your approach has to be. Anyways, I hope till this point of time, whatever I spoke about is crystal clear to you guys. Next, what you might ask? See, now we spoke about Python, right? Now I wanted to understand that is Python really something you must invest your time in learning? Because Java is a no-brainer. Everybody will be like, yes, sir, Java we will learn. But should I also learn Python? Now, let me show you an interesting statistic, my dear friend, right? I don't know how many of you are aware of this. See, do you know that there is a website which shows you the ranks of a programming language? They rank languages, right? Let me take you to that website directly. If in case I go to my Google Chrome, there I will just search for a website called as TIOBE, like this. TIOBE. I'll just click on that first link. Now, this is that, I'll increase the size a little bit. This is the website, TIOBE, right? I will just click on that. If I click on that, TIOB gives you something called as a TIOB index. Every month they give that index. If I scroll down, you can notice they're given ranks of languages, right? In that ranks of languages, you can notice the first position is held by C language. The second position is held by Java. And the third most popular language in the entire world is what? Python. Python today, as we speak, is the third most popular language in the entire world. In fact, I want you to understand there is hardly any difference between first, second, and third. Have you seen these Olympic sprint races? If you look at that finishing line in slow motion, you will see the difference between the first place, second place, and third place sometimes will be in milliseconds. Hardly that fellow would have put his head out like this and won the race. That is the difference between first, second, and third place. If any language has occupied the first three positions, it means the entire IT industry is revolving around these languages, which is a clear indication to you that C language, anyways, why it is number one position is because Java's JVM, you would have heard, Java Virtual Machine, which is the heart of Java, is coded using C language. Python is created using C language. So this is the language which is the root, core language. Obviously, it will be in the first position. In fact, from the day it was created, it has been in the first position. Second position has always been Java's. Now, the third position has now come to Python. And let me tell you, the previous month, just the previous month, Python had come to the second position. Java had gone to the third position. Like this competition is happening. But I want you to understand, it is my promise to you, 1 year from now, Python will be number one in terms of rank. Because the entire machine learning, artificial intelligence space is occupied by Python. And whether you like it or not, if you want a secure job, you must adapt yourself and step into the domain of AI. Right? I myself have invested time and learned AI completely because there is no way you can escape the future. You can only be part of the future, right? Any which ways. Now, let us speak a little about why Python became so popular, right? Let us speak about that. Because it is not simply that one day this language became popular. I would like to give you a small history about how this Python as a language evolved, right? But before that, let me show you a few more statistics about Python. So watch this, all of you. Now, one second. Right. So, are you guys enjoying so far? I know you have a lot of questions. Please wait till it becomes 7:30 and I will 100% give you an opportunity to clarify all your questions. And I sincerely hope you're enjoying and you are getting information as we speak. I hope your mind is being expanded, right? This is the main intention behind this, awareness. Because I know all of you are locked in your respective houses, and frustration is there. Some of you are cursing your fate that, why did I have to be the batch of 2020? My friend, trust me, we have got it easy. Our previous generations who have faced 10 times more worse situations such as world wars, that plague and all that, what we are going through is not that bad, right? But definitely it is very, very bad. But if there is a will, there is a way. and always try to look for a solution. Don't be part of the problem. Try to be part of the solution, and that is why this awareness. So that at least I can generate interest in few of your hearts to dedicatedly and in a very committed manner pursue this path, and definitely it will give you results, right? Anyways, moving forward. Now, what I want to speak to you about is, see, if in case this is a graph, right, which I picked up from Stack Overflow. As you can see, this is from Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow has given a very interesting statistics. This is the percentage of questions asked on Stack Overflow. I know all of you know of Stack Overflow. If you ever had any coding issue, you got stuck, you got an error, you got a bug, you wanted to know how to overcome that bug, what did you do? You went to Stack Overflow, you Googled. First link is always Stack Overflow, right? So Stack Overflow has told over the years 2012 to 2018, so forth, what is the overall percentage of questions asked on Stack Overflow for different languages. This is the graph for all these other languages, which I'm just showing you like this, right? So this is JavaScript, this is Java, this is C#, this is PHP, this is C++. Now the thing, what I want you to understand is, look at this carefully, right? Java, 9% of almost overall questions has consistently been Java's up, down, up, down, up, down, like this. Slowly as the years went, JavaScript became popular, that too primarily because of web development. C# initially was very famous, but it just kept dipping in popularity. PHP has also completely dipped in popularity. C++ has dipped in popularity. Now, where is Python, if you ask me? This is a graph for Python, as you can see. Majority or a huge chunk of questions asked on Stack Overflow is on Python. Now, why is this important to you? Because this is a simple way for you to understand that, my friend, only if the industry is using the language, they're coding in the language, they will get issues. Only if they get issues, they will go to Stack Overflow and ask a question. So this is a direct indication that yes, questions are being asked. People are using Python. Any confusion till this point of time? Anyways, this is not the only reason why Python is so famous. Python is so famous because of the variety of fields in which Python has been used, right? Different fields Python is used in. If I have to give you an example, right? Python is a programming language which is the driving force behind what you call as AI or artificial intelligence. The most used programming language for data science, machine learning, and deep learning is Python. NumPy, Pandas, scikit-learn, SciPy, your NLTK, TensorFlow, you name it. All the most famous libraries for AI are all Python libraries. In fact, Google, who's the creator of TensorFlow, promotes Python every day. The entire organization is promoting Python, and you can imagine if Google is promoting Python, how important it is. Python is also, as I told you, one of the most used languages for data analytics and data science. Because today businesses have changed. They take data, they visualize data, right? Visualizing data, plotting graphs, etc., will give you insights about business. You will know where your business is failing. You know where maximum sales are happening, where sales are not happening. You know which product to stop producing, which product to produce faster and more. You can forecast or predict the sales the next year. So many things you can do. Python is again a huge player there. Also, Python is one of the most used programming language for cyber security, because our lives have gone online. Along with our lives, everything about our life is also online. Banking transactions happen online. The most intimate messages and personal images are shared online. All your documents are online. Your Aadhaar card is linked to your PAN card, is linked to your FASTag, is linked to your bank account, is linked to God knows where and all. Everything is online, right? So when everything is online, obviously, like how banks used to be robbed, how pickpocketers used to steal your wallet, there is a different kind of theft that is happening online, which is by cyber criminals. And the only wall which stands between the cyber criminals and your data, your information, your products is a cyber security expert, right? Python is used there also. Definitely, Python is another huge player in the field of robotic process automation, or what you call as RPA. Again, what is RPA if you ask me? I wish I had the time to invest about it. We are lacking a little bit of time. I have many other things to cover. What is the time right now? 7. I have only half an hour with me. Maybe if you're really interested, we can share you a video where I've extensively spoken about RPA. And I don't know if you have joined the WhatsApp groups or not. I had also posted a video where in depth about data science we have explained. So that also is something which you can watch if you're interested, my dear friends, right? Python is again a huge player when it comes to web development, as I told you. Python is again a huge player when it comes to another field called as automation testing. Right? Selenium plus Python combination is one of the most preferred combinations in the testing market today. So there are so many applications of Python, right? Any which ways, the main reason why Python is so popular. In fact, there are two reasons, if at all I have to segregate it. What are the two reasons, you might ask? The first reason why Python is extremely popular is because it is very easy, my friend. Its syntax of Python is super easy. Definitely it's simple. And the second reason is, as I told you, it's usage in AI. Now, when I say Python is easy, some of you who hate programming will be like, sir, how can you say a programming language is easy? That is the most meaningless statement you have told. How much we have struggled in our college and in our labs to write a simple bubble sort program. C language syntax is so difficult for us. Are you sure Python is easy? I will prove it to you. I'll prove how easy Python is to you. But before that, let me just give you a little bit of background as to how this language was invented. And that will definitely tell you why it is so easy, right? See, my friend, please understand. You know, Python was actually invented by one Mr. Guido van Rossum, and he's actually one of my personal mentors as well, because the contribution this one man has done to the computing field, to the IT world, is immense. In fact, I am a person, see, I have taught all kinds of programming languages. Being a teacher, I should not take sides. I've taught C language, I've taught C++, I've taught JavaScript, I've taught PHP, I've taught Java, of course, and I have also taught Python. But one language which left a very deep impact on me is Python, because you will fall in love with the language. There is no other way. That's how beautiful its syntax is. Now, let us get into the mind of Guido van Rossum to understand why he created the language the way he created it. For that, I should take you back in history a little bit. See, Guido van Rossum was working for a research institute called as CWI. There is a full form for it, but I don't want to embarrass myself trying to, pronounce a Dutch word. I don't want to do that. But there is a full form. You guys can go and see. Now, this was a research institute, right? Computer Research Institute. There, Guido van Rossum and his team, they were part of a project to build their own unique operating system. They wanted to build their own unique operating system, right? And the operating system that they were working on was called as the Amoeba operating system. That is the name they had decided, Amoeba OS. Now, anyone who has worked on OS knows that the language which is used most to create operating systems is the language which can directly interact with the hardware of your computer in the most easiest way. And that language is the world's most famous low-level language, which is C language. There is a reason why C is today still number one, because you might be using Java, beneath it is C. You might be using Python, beneath it is C. If an airbag is being released in your car, it's thanks to C. If a spaceship is being launched, it is thanks to C. Because one of the fastest executing and one of the languages which can directly interact with the hardware of a computer in a very seamless way is still C language, right? So they were also using C language. So they were very busy using C language, and they were coding, and you can imagine to code something like OS, how complicated it would be. But these guys got frustrated. Definitely they got frustrated. Why did they get frustrated, if you ask me? That is because C language, it's amazing, but syntax wise, it is a nightmare. People who have learned C, people who have learned about pointers in C, people who have learned about format specifiers in C know that one little bit, if you mess up here and there, your code can behave in very, very different ways than you ever imagined. It is powerful. At the same time, it's a double-edged sword. It can cut you just the way it can cut your enemy as well, right? So, frustration. C language is not easy to use. That time, Guido van Rossum felt, hey, like there's so many developers across the world will be struggling with development because the language is difficult. People in the future, when IT industry, this was in 1980s, my friend. If the IT industry booms, people will not even want to become developers because they will hate using a language which is so difficult to use. And that time, he had an idea. So I need to develop a simple language. That was his motivation. In fact, he went back and he started to work on that language. And being the ultra smart genius that is, in a very short period of time, he was able to successfully create a prototype of his idea. He was able to create a language, right? In fact, he did not give a name to this language. But one thing was sure, that he made the language in such a way that its syntax is very, very easy. After a couple of months, when the prototype was ready, he went and showed it. He demonstrated the language to his team. His team were super impressed. Wow, Guido, what a beautiful language you have created, right? And then they told, listen, this language is so amazing that you will be doing a crime if you keep it only to yourself. Publish it to the world. Let people know about it. Let people use it. That is what they told. Guido van Rossum also felt correct. I should make it public. I should make it free. I should make it open source. I didn't do this for money. I did it so that I can serve a purpose. But then he wanted to give it a name. What name shall I give my language? This was a very, very big question at the back of his mind. So what happened is, you might be expecting some crazy story here. Actually, there is no such story. All that happened was, Guido van Rossum went back home. In his TV, he was watching his most favorite thing. Just excuse me for a second. Am I not audible? Can you guys hear me now? I'm sorry about that. I forgot to switch on my mic. If you can just put a yes in the chat if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, great. Wonderful. As I was saying, that word Python caught his attention. This was his favorite show, Monty Python's Flying Circus. That word Python caught his attention, and he's like, hey, that's as good a name as any. And then he decided to name his language as Python. Some of you might be thinking he loves snakes. That's why he named it as Python. No, snakes and the language has nothing to do with each other. As a matter of fact, he thought that if I go tell Python, my name of the language is Python, obviously people will think he keeps a Python as pet in his house, you know. So, anyways, people are going to think that the name of the language and the snake has some kind of a correlation. So, anyways, people are thinking that. So, what he decided to do is the logo of his language, he made it such that it is two intertwining snakes. See, it's like two snakes intertwining together. That is the logo of the language. This was a small, brief history about Python. But why I said all this is so that I want you to understand one thing, that the creator created the language, intended it to be a simple language. Now, all you and me have to do is go and explore for ourselves whether really this language is as simple as it claims to be. For that, I would like to end this session by writing a simple program. Now, this program is not to check your technical concepts. This program is just for me to show you that if I write the same logic in the number one language in the world, which is C, in the number two language in the world, Java, and in the number three language in the world, Python, I want you guys to be the judge and decide for yourself whether really this is easy or not. I want you to decide for yourself. Don't let my views influence you, right? So, what is this program you might ask? Let us use a very, very simple program itself. Very simple, something everybody can understand because I don't know the background of the crowd in front of me. In fact, your wonderful colleges asked, is there any prerequisite to attend this? Should the students have any technical knowledge before attending? All I told was that please bring anyone and anyone interested in technology, right? So let's not complicate things. But tomorrow and day after, I'm going to do some hardcore coding. You better come ready for that. But watch it, all of you. I'm going to write a program to swap two numbers. Very simple logic. What do you mean by swapping? Assume this is a variable A. Assume this is another variable B. Inside this A, I have some number, 100. Inside B, I have another number, maybe 200. What I want to do is, when my program executes, these values should get swapped like this. That's all that should happen. Value should get swapped. Okay, let me bring it back to the original position. Point is swapping should happen. How are we going to write logic for this? Very simple. Easiest way. Now there are n number of ways to do it. Those of you who are preparing for technical interviews, be careful. The interviewer will ask you, do you know different ways to swap a number without using a third variable, by doing arithmetic operations, etc., by doing bit manipulations? They will ask you all that. You be prepared for all of that, but I'm going to use the most traditional way, which is by using another variable called as a third variable. How does the third variable help you? Simple. 3 steps, that's all. Whatever is in A, you take first, give it to this temporary variable. Step number 2, whatever is in B you take, give it to A. Step number 3, all of you can guess. Take whatever is in temp, give it to B. That's all you have to do. Any confusion till here? Now let us write code for this. And I'm going to write it in 3 languages, my friends. Number 1 language, number 2 language, number 3 language. You decide, right? Let's start. I'm going to write code in C. I'll write it in Java. I'll write it in Python. But I will not execute my C program and show you. I will not execute my Java program and show you. 100% I will execute the Python program and show you. That much is guaranteed. 100% I will execute it and show you, right? But watch it. Those of you who have learned C, you know that in C language, first line is always hash include stdio.h. Header files you have to type. C language is a functional programming language. C language is a structured programming language. C language is a procedural programming language, which means functions are there in C. Everything is functions. And one function is compulsory in every program. Which is that function? Can you guess and tell me which is the function which is compulsory in every C program? I'm asking for the technical experts who are attending this session. Which is that function? Main. Very good. So main function is compulsory. 100% I'm going to tell void main like this. Now inside that, I'm going to now write my code. So first thing is, I'll tell int a equal to 100. Now, C language is such a language, you must understand. A is the name of that variable. 100 is the value. But this is a statically typed language, which means not only should you create a variable, not only should you assign a value to the variable, you must also first only tell C language what is the type of value which is stored inside that variable. And you know the type of value which is stored inside the variable is an integer. So you must tell him this is called as data type declaration. You have to do this. And how can you forget this semicolon in the end? Never forget that, because how many times you've got that error, semicolon missing. Semicolon is compulsory, right? Similarly, I will tell int b equal to 200. I need my temporary variable. Of course, it's empty. So I should tell int temp like this. Semicolon is compulsory. Now, before I swap, I want to print it. How do you print in C language? Oh, that's a different story altogether. You must call a function called as printf. Mention the format specifier. In this case, it is an integer, so %d. Then you should tell which is the value which should be replaced here. And A is what I'm telling. Similarly, I will tell printf and I will print b also. Again, if the syntax is confusing, don't worry. We are not here for C. We are here for Python. Next, I'm going to swap. What is the first step? Whatever is in A, assign it to temp. Assignment is always from right to left side. So though I will write code like this, temp equal to A, what you're doing is assigning A to temp. Next step, whatever is in B, assign it to A. Because it's right to left, I will tell A equal to B like this, but it is always B being assigned to A. Last step is to assign whatever is in temp to B. I will tell B equal to temp like this. 100% swapping would have happened. Next what? To prove swapping would have happened, I will just print the values of A and B again. And if I print the value of A and B again, then the first time A should be 100, B should be 200. Second time A should be 200, B should be 100. Will this work? 100%. But I want to execute and show you. This is the code in C. Definitely it is not easy. Syntax wise, it is not easy. If a person is writing this as their first program, they would not enjoy the experience. So many things to remember. All right, let us go to the number 2 language in the world, Java. Freshers' favorite language, Java. Everybody always talks about Java. Now, Java is different from C in the sense that this is an object-oriented programming language. Classes and objects are compulsory in Java. Hence, I'm going to begin by creating something called as a class. I will call it as a demo. This is the opening of the class. This is the closing of the class. Just like C, in Java also main function is compulsory. But the syntax of main function is a little more complicated. You must tell public, static, void, main of string arguments. In fact, one of the commonly asked interview questions is, why is it public? Why is it static? Why is it void? What is the string arguments? What is meant by a dynamic array? What is the type of data type stored in this args? If you know it, wonderful. If not, start preparing right now. What are you waiting for? Next, what you might ask. Next thing is, just like C, Java is also a statically typed language, which means data type is compulsory, semicolon is compulsory. Similarly, I will tell int b equal to 200, like this. I will just tell int b equal to 200. Next, what you might ask. Next is, I want to print before swapping. How will you print if you ask me? In C, it is printf. In Java, all of you know, it is system.out.println, and of course, before that, temp I have to create. Next, you have to tell system.out.println and then tell A. Such a big syntax. Then I will tell system.out.println and B is what I should be telling if in case I want to print B, which is what I am also just telling like this. Same logic for swapping. First step, whatever is in A, assign it to temp. Second step, whatever is in temp, whatever is in B, assign it to A. Third step, whatever is in temp, assign it to B, like this. That's it. Again, I would like to print it to show you that swapping is possible. System.out.println of A. Next, I'm going to tell system.out.println of B, so that before swapping, after swapping, both is visible to you. And that is what I'm showing like this. Any confusion till here? Will this work? Guaranteed. But I will not execute and show you. Because my aim here to show you how simple Python is. So leave the number 2 language. Let's come to the number 3 language in the world, which is Python. Now look at it. Python is a dynamically typed language. Python is the only language, not the only language, of course, but Python is a language which can be written in 2 approaches. You can write it in the procedural approach, like C language, writing functions. You can also write Python code in the object-oriented approach using classes and objects. That's the beauty of Python. But watch it. You want to swap two numbers in Python, isn't it? See how easy it is. First, you want a variable A which has 100. Tell that. What about main function, Rohit? Not required. What about class, Rohit? Not required. What about header files? Not required. Okay, what about int? Not required. What about semicolon? Not required. Really? Yes. You want to create B, isn't it? Just tell that. B equal to 200. This is the beauty of a dynamically typed language. You want to print the value of A and B. See how simple the syntax is. Print A, that's all. Print B, that's all. Don't you think it's like reading English? Simple syntax. You want to swap. No third variable, fourth variable business and all. In one line, swapping will happen. What is the syntax? This is the syntax. How will this swap? Very simple. Look at the right side. A is there. A, I'm assigning it to B. B's value, I'm assigning it to A. That's all. A's value inside B, B's value inside A. Swapping is done. To prove it, I'm just going to print A and I'm going to print B as well, like this. Now, this I want to execute and show you. Now I have typed this code in my editor in the background. If I have to execute it, I should go to the command prompt. So let us go to the command prompt so that I can type in the relevant commands and execute it for you. So just watch it, all of you. Right. I'm in my command prompt right now. Are you guys able to hear me? Well, able to. Wonderful. So this is my command prompt. Okay. Now there, I'm not, why I'm writing this commands, all that, forget about it. If you want to execute a Python program, you must tell a command called as Python like this. Next, you must tell which is the file inside which the Python program is there. I've stored it inside a file called as swap.py. .py meaning it's a Python file. .java means it has Java code. .c means it has C code. .py means it has Python code. .html means it has HTML code. .css means it has CSS code. Extensions tell you the content of the file, right? But if in case I press enter, as you can see, 100, 200, 200, 100, as simple as that. Any confusion till this point of time? Certainly it works. Anyways, if in case I go back, all I wanted to prove through this is that Python is easy. The number of lines, right, in C language, if I have to show you, C language almost will take 14 lines to do the same thing. If in case you speak about Java, Java is also no less, 16 lines. If in case you speak about Python, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. That's all. Half of C, less than half of Java is why I also in simple words told you that Python is simple. That's why I told you, learn Java, also learn Python. For today, this is for tomorrow. In fact, this can be a today as well. So these are certain things which I wanted to speak about, right? These are certain things which I felt that a fresher who is about to graduate, a fresher who has graduated, and people who are in their second year, third year, who want to do the right thing at the right point of time so that getting a job becomes a pleasant experience instead of an unpleasant experience should know. That is why all this effort, right? And I hope you enjoyed this form of teaching because this is our personal innovation here at Rooman. We call this as augmented reality live classes. And all this was done just for one purpose, which is to show the student community that yes, the pandemic has hit, but learning need not stop. Online learning can be as effective as offline learning. In fact, for a true learner, the mode of learning does not matter because they always look for a solution and keep moving forward, right? So